welcome to Stash Chat. Thank you so much for joining us for another really exciting conversation. So, if you are new around here, my name is Yvette. I'm the co founder of the Stash Hub Sewing Organizer app. And every week, I have a conversation with a different member of the sewing community about how they got into sewing, about their sewing stash, and what they're up to, what inspires them. So it's always really good fun to hear a different story from someone in the community. So if you're joining live, do get involved in the live chat. So you can just kick us off by letting us know where you are watching from. I can see we've got already Natalie, Rachel, and Alison joining us, and Jan's just come on as well. So welcome to the live chat. As always, please pop your questions for our guest, who this week is Luke Matthew from the Sewing Bee. So pop your questions for them in the chat throughout our conversation, and I will weave them in. So in terms of Stash Hub news, we are just back from the Stitch Festival. So thank you so much if you came by to see us at the show. It was really good fun. It was amazing to see loads of you guys and also to introduce Stash Hub to some new people. So yeah, that was amazing. And I also did this week a talk on the Together We Stitch Expo about how Stash Hub can help boost your sewing productivity. So look up Together We Stitch if you fancy checking out that talk as well. So that's it for Stash Hub news for this week. So yeah, let's chat about who we are going to be talking to tonight. So tonight I've got a really exciting guest on, which is Luke Matthew from the Sewing Bee. So I think it was season 10, which was last year's season, and Luke Matthew was actually the winner. So spoiler alert if you're in one of the countries that is really behind on the Sewing Bee. Yeah, really excited to hear more about Luke Matthews' creative approach to sewing. So let's get them on and get this Stash Chat going. So start thinking of your questions as well. Hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Well, yeah, great. Welcome to Stash Chat.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Can't wait to answer some questions.
I know, always great to have some more Sewing Bee alumni on Stash Chats, although you'll probably get the same questions that we always get, like what does Patrick smell like and things like
Oh, divine. Honestly, if you ever get the chance to give Patrick a cuddle, go ahead and do it because he always smells great.
that. Is that in your contract? You have to say that.
No, honestly, I think I might have said it in one interview that everyone says, "What do you want to get out of the sewing bee?" And obviously, people might talk about, making new sewing friends, even as far as winning the sewing bee. Mine was just to get a hug off Patrick, and I got one right at the very end.
So that's you've got to go to the end then to get the hug.
Yeah, on everyone was getting them left, right, and center, and I just had to wait until I got the trophy, and then I finally got a hug. So it did make me happy, but not waiting that long.
Yeah, imagine if you'd gone out in episode one, then he's like, "Oh, you and now you're out." And you're like, "Can I go for a hug now?" Or
I
didn't get
still
enough
think
time
Neil
in the
got a hug.
spotlight.
Yeah. But no, yeah, definitely go and give Patrick a whiff if you get a chance.
Alison says, "Love Patrick." Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of Patrick fans out there. So do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself? What's
Yeah,
your
I'd
sort
love
of
to.
sewing style?
Oh, sewing style. So my sewing style is very diverse. I kind of get inspiration from many, many different places. Um, Where I kind of started sewing was when I was super young, maybe around like 6 to 8 years old. My grandma was a fab sewer in the terms of, she could make any alterations that we needed. She could hem a curtain. She used to make costumes for kind of school plays and things like that. But she wasn't necessarily the most creative sewer, but she had all of the technical skills. And obviously, me being 6 years old, had no skills whatsoever, but all of these crazy creative ideas. So she started getting me into sewing from quite a young age, making, fabric bags from scraps, maybe little costumes for me and my sister. And I picked up quite a lot of, techniques to the point where going to school, I'd sew my own labels on, or a button would fall off. I'd fix that myself because my mum wasn't a sewer. And then I don't know if it's true for many people, but kind of then getting a little bit older into my teens, it wasn't cool to sew. And like when I was younger, it was very much like everyone would go to Topshop and Topman to get their kind of clothes for the weekend. And sewing was still just not necessarily that accessible for the younger people at the time. But I still had all this creativity, and it wasn't until being at university and starting doing drag and just seeing the sheer amount of creative possibilities with drag that I was like, oh, I've got to get a sewing machine and start creating these ideas. And then that's where I would just give anything a go. So it went from kind of nothing to glitz, glam, sparkles, and feathers. And then over the time of kind of learning how to make drag costumes, started thinking about bringing that into my day to day, where I've kind of got a bit obsessed with, utility style clothing, and bringing some of that kind of fab drag into my day to day as well.
Yeah, it must be really difficult to get started with drag if you don't sew, because it would be, like, really expensive, I guess, if you have to get things custom made and then not that easy to find the right things just off the rack.
Yeah, that's really true. I think a lot of kind of the big drag superstars that you might see on some of the TV shows, or even at like your local drug venues, they'll have designers working with them to come up with those ideas. But actually, it's really common for drag performers to take up sewing so that they can bring that creativity to life. But and I think that's where for me sewing and creativity do go hand in hand, because I had those ideas and not the techniques when I first started drag, and I was making things out of bin bags, duct tape, and hot glue. And then it wasn't until like learning kind of those techniques, um, from sewing, that I was able to kind of create some more, better looks.
Do you think of your kind of drag, uh, costume sewing that you do as kind of like a separate process almost to sewing kind of regular clothes that you would wear day to day?
Yeah, I've never really thought about it. I think my approach might be the same in terms of looking for inspiration, whether that's like online, Pinterest, sewing patterns, high street, all of that stuff. Um, coming up with a concept, it might not be, drafting a pattern just yet. It might just be the idea of something. And then finding the fabric, all of the process is the same. But I think when you kind of get into the construction of it, I do less drag stuff for myself now. So there is a slight difference because it's more commission based with performers. So there's a bit more risk at play. I know my body shape. I know body shapes of kind of the people close to me that I can make stuff for. Whereas if you're working with a new drag performer, it's a completely new body shape. So there is that risk at play. And I think that's why I have to put my serious hat on.
Yeah, I think it is a very different experience sewing for other people as well, and probably even
Mm,
more so if they have commissioned you and they're paying you. Because I think when you sew for yourself, you know, like, what your sort of tolerance limits are for, like, little mistakes and stuff. Whereas if you think, "Oh, someone's, like, paying me, like, hundreds of pounds for this,"
yeah.
and, like, I mean, this is from my experience, I'm not saying you make loads of mistakes.
Who uh who's been the most nerve-wracking person that you've ever had to sew for?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really sewn for anyone. Like, I don't offer to sew from other
Mm,
people a lot. I mostly just sew for myself. Um, yeah, so I mean, I feel like Doug's got a couple of bits. I probably the most nerve-wracking is gonna be my dad because
mm,
my parents both came to the Stitch Festival on Saturday because my mum and I were on the catwalk, and then my parents, like, I don't know what they were doing, but they were going around the show for like 5 hours. Um, I think they neither of them sew or do like any kind of fiber crafts, so I don't know what they were playing at, but I think they just really wanted to like take it all in whilst they were
the
there. And
vibes.
then yeah, then my dad came back to the stand and he was like, "Oh, I've seen a fabric that would be really nice for a shirt." And I was like, "Okay, do you want to show it to me?" And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then we went to the stand and he showed me this fabric and he's like, "Oh, you've never made me anything. You always make
Oh,
mum all these dresses." And I'm like, "Well, you've never asked me to make you anything. Like, I'm
yeah.
gonna spend loads of time making you something and then you don't like it." but yeah, so I don't know how that's gonna go because he's a bit fussy, and already I've said, like I said, send me your measurements, and then I also
Mm.
sent a thing that was like instructions of how to measure like an existing shirt that he's got, and like the finished garment measurements and stuff. And they were already, both my parents are a bit like, oh, seems a bit complicated. I'm like, I'm
It's
not
too
doing
much
it
now.
in a random size, but it's nice fabric, so I'll just sew it for myself if he can never be bothered to
Yeah,
send me his measurements.
add it to the stash just in case.
Yeah, exactly. It's already in my stash hub. I put it on when we were on the stand with our little computer.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Do you like everyone who's watching live in the chat as well? Remember to pop your questions in for Luke Matthew. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your sewing stash?
Yeah, so you may notice I'm not in the studio, because the sewing studio is covered in glitter and feathers, and it's a mess because I also was at Stitch Festival and have not fully recovered from it yet. So I've not gone downstairs to tidy it up, but I have brought some stuff with me. So the first two pieces are things I bought at the Stitch Fest from Rainbow Fabrics. Now, I, growing up, hated denim and jeans. I don't like the feel of denim. I don't like the feel of kind of jeans growing up. And honestly, it wasn't until after the sewing bee that I've just found this new love for denim. So I've been vintage shopping, denim jackets, denim overalls when I get the opportunity to. And I think that's mainly because vintage denim is already so pre-worn, it's so soft. Um, but at Rainbow Fabrics, I went wild and I've just probably bought all of the denim they've got. So on the first day at Stitch Fest, I wore one of my upcoming dungaree patterns that I'd made out of this kind of patchwork printed denim. And I loved it so much, I had to go and buy some more. And I'm not even sure if there's any left. So even if you do love it, I've probably got all of it in my stash. But I might save some if anyone is interested. And then I also found this denim that has kind of a pattern in it, woven in. And what I really liked about this is thinking about some patterns coming up, playing with kind of the reverse side of it as well. So I think there's a lot that I can do with that. So watch out to see those on the Instagram grid. The next two that I thought I'd share are from Minerva, and these are two really soft canvases. And I bought these because, as I say, I've got some patterns that are coming up very soon, and we're going to use these for the photo shoot. So you will be seeing these very soon once I've mocked up the model sizes. Um, I have brought some, you know, shiny drag glittery fabric as well, just to show that other side. So this is
So is it
some.
is this drag fabric for you or just for the stash in case someone asks for it?
Ah, that's a good question. I think it's been in the stash for a while. I think I bought this one, the sequin. It's a really fine sequin. Um, I'm gonna say nearly 4 years ago. And I haven't really done anything with it. But then I also found this kind of velvet with glitter in too. And when I was looking through my stash before to get ready for this, I kind of came up with an idea to put these two together for a drag look.
Oh, nice.
So
That'll be so luxurious.
inspiration already just by going through the stash. Like, how good is that? Um, so yeah, I think I could make something for myself. Or, if you're looking for a drag look, I can make you one as well out of these.
Is this your challenge to dragify the whole sewing community?
Oh, that is the challenge. And the last one
Can
I
you do a
brought.
drag look for Patrick? Because that would be so iconic.
So we talked about this, Patrick and I, and we did come up with a drag name, and you have to say it in a Yorkshire accent, but it's Tonya Knees, and he's really up for that. So maybe I could make that for him. We'll
Be
see.
amazing. I feel like Patrick's so like straight as well. Like if you put like some big curves on Patrick, it would just be so strange.
It would, but then I think it would be also quite fun to play with the lankiness of Patrick because he's so
Yeah.
tall and like playing with those proportions. So like, you know, an ankle cut dress with like sleeves that come up to his elbow or something. I just think that would be really fun to play with.
I think he'd still need like a really long tie.
That just goes on the floor into a train,
Yeah.
trails behind him.
The whole outfit's just a massive tie.
The whole outfit's ties, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. That was such a
Uh,
I actually forgot that was even made of ties. It's so good.
yeah, I brought this up as well from the studio just in case anyone wanted to see her again. So this was um episode 9 design week, and this is the transformation made entirely out of ties, and still is one of my favorite pieces because that's the aspect of the transformation challenge that I love, is that it does force you to really think outside of the box and be as creative as you can. And I just remember making the fabric for this in the 90 minutes, and I think 30 minutes in, I was still sewing ties together, and Kyle actually came and sat next to me and said, "You need to put something on a mannequin soon because you've only got 30 minutes left." Um, so yeah, I was really happy with that one.
When you would like during the challenges on the sewing bee, did you feel like just like really in the zone, like, just keep going, like, you know, get
Yeah,
I
it was it's such a surreal experience. Because everyone kind of goes into it so differently in terms of how you deal with, you know, some of the pressure that comes with the show. And I don't know if it's because I've done performing when I was at university studying classical music or drag or even just kind of working in the corporate space as well. I deal with pressure by just like really hyper focusing on the task at hand. So I'd be making something and I just remember looking up at the end when, you know, time is done, and there might be someone in tears, someone hysterically laughing, someone like struggling to finish up what they're doing, and I'd just be like, I have no idea what had happened in that time. So it was always really nice to watch the shows back, like each episode every week, because I'd be like, oh, I didn't even know Elsa made that, or Susie was doing that while I was putting that zip in. It was just, yeah, you have no kind of spatial awareness.
yeah, I imagine it kind of like being in an exam where you're literally
Yeah,
just like you have to just like focus. And I think especially with the transformation challenge, I feel like it's a kind of case of like first idea, best idea, and you just really have to like go for it. Because I think sometimes when people faff about and they don't like they try and change their idea like halfway through, then they just don't have the time.
I think that's true, and I think most of the transformation challenges, people had kind of gone in with an idea. I know I certainly did, or like a technique, like I'm gonna use quilting. You know, I don't know what this challenge is gonna be. It might be working with bin bags, but I'm gonna do some quilting. Um,
That's quite an interesting way to approach it.
yeah, because I think you've got a starting point. So as soon as you see the material or see kind of what the task is, you the ideas are already kind of starting to form. But you say about kind of sticking with it. I mean, even in the final, when we had to work with the paper napkins and things like that, I made 4 dresses in the 90 minutes and just tore them up or put them aside until I had the final one, because I think on each iteration, I was kind of creatively working it out. So it was like making so many toiles until I'd kind of got what I wanted to make by the end of it. And you can do a lot in 90 minutes.
Do you feel like you sew faster now after the sewing bee?
I think I actually sew slower. So going into the sewing bee, I would say I was very much a speed sewer, get things done. You know, I've been booked to do a drag gig on Saturday and it's Thursday and I have no time to make an outfit. So it's all about kind of making the most high impact thing possible. No one ever looks at the inside of it because it's just a mess. And then I remember really early on, um, Patrick and Esme saying to me, like, you know, they could see the creativity and the ideas, but, you know, I've got wonky seams here, or this just wasn't quite right. And it was really silly mistakes that I think if I'd just take a little bit more time, I would have just been a better sewer. So that's what I was really trying to do throughout each episode is keep kind of my ideas and the creativity, but really hone in on the technique. So now I'm forcing myself to go a little bit slower.
Yeah, well, that's a really good takeaway from the show.
Yeah, I think some people think you have to go in and be super fast. Obviously, you have to have some speed behind you, but it is finding that blend of the two. Are you a
Yeah,
fast or so
definitely.
slower?
I'm quite slow, um, just because otherwise it goes wrong, and then it takes longer to unpick it.
Yeah.
And I will unpick things as well if I don't like them. I'll like
Mm,
look at it and be like, no, that's not good enough. And then, but there's like a limit. So, like, if you want to like, I don't know, line up an armpit seam or something, and then it'll be like a few millimeters out, and I'm like, no, I can make that better. I'll do it again. But if I do like three times and it always comes out the same, I'm like, okay, the universe has spoken. It's wonky.
I'm just not sure I have the patience. I will say, I think sometimes people underestimate prep. So, like, making sure that, if it is like an underarm seam, like making sure you're using pins, everything's lined up, like even down to like tacking before you touch a machine. I've tried to do that a lot more, and with drag, it's so important as well because you do so many fittings, to make sure something's right. Like drag queens love to lie about the measurements. So they'll come and tell you they've got a 26-inch waist and it's more like a 32, which is absolutely fine. But it just means you have to start all over again once you've kind of made them something.
Yeah. I guess as well, it's a lot of kind of more difficult to sew fabrics with drag as well.
Yeah, I mean, even on the B, I was working with kind of leather and vinyl to make the Gaga look. And I've used that before. I've used some kind of faux leathers that are really hard to kind of sew with, all the way down to like thinking about what's in my stash, unconventional materials as well. So like plastic tablecloths, stuff like that, because you need to play with structure and sometimes, fabric you might get from, your local fabric shop isn't going to do that, or actually playing with that fabric in new, interesting ways, to kind of create that movement or to create that kind of body and structure to it as well is something that I do really love about drag costumes.
So would you say that you're quite an experimental sewer?
Um, well, maybe when it comes to drag from a creativity point of view, I think for the home sewer, some of the stuff I do make, they're not gonna wear it on their local food shop, so it probably is, you know, a bit out there. But I think in terms of techniques, probably not, no. It's just kind of and that's why, one of the big things that I talk to people about is pushing that level of creativity because you can do it with the skills that you have. It might just be in playing with shapes, it might be playing with fabrics, and it's thinking about those elements where you can put your own personality in because we can all buy the same pattern. We could all buy the same fabric, make something, and there'll be differences in terms of how we construct it. But if you then start to add in, different fabric choices, altering the pattern that we've bought, I think that's where we can start to have a bit more creativity.
Yeah, that's really cool. Right, we had a few questions in the chat a minute ago when I said to everyone, send in your questions, and then
Oh,
I
go
didn't read
on.
any of them out. So Jan's asking about your suit at the Stitch Festival. So was that your wedding suit that you wore on the catwalk?
Y- Yeah, that was my wedding suit. So that was the second time I'd wore it since, well, second time including the actual wedding that was in February. And we were backstage getting ready to come out, and I found my actual vows in my pocket.
Oh,
I was a little bit emotional coming out, but it was so nice to be able to wear it again because again, that's like something that you don't necessarily get to have the opportunity to wear again, even if it's like a dress or a suit. Um, but yeah, it was so great to wear that, and people have been like following along in terms of making it and doing all of that beading. It was nice to kind of show it off as well so people could see it.
yeah. So Jan says, how long did it take you to make it?
Oh, so I think I'm drafted and made the trousers in an afternoon, which is fine. I've drafted quite a lot of trousers for myself, so the sewing of that didn't take that long. Did a lot of finishing maybe in another afternoon because I had all of the seams bound as well. The jacket, potentially 2, 3 days, long shifts, constructing it together, making sure that everything was perfect. The beading, about 5 weeks. That was the longest beading I've ever done. Like, I just gave myself a week to get each of the patches done because each was, hand sewn. I tried timbre, needle, work as well to get them done. I just couldn't get the hang of it, so I just thought, "I've got a deadline, the wedding's coming, I'm just gonna do it all by hand," and each patch took me about a week. So the construction of the suit, pretty fast. That hand beading was just wild.
Had you done much hand beading beforehand?
Um Little bits, with drag, costumes, if you're adding kind of details, everyone loves a bit of glue and rhinestones, so that's always quite easy. It did cross my mind a few times to just pull out the hot glue gun. But actually once I got into the hang of, like, hand sewing the beads together, and I wanted it to be really dense with different kind of textures of black beads, it was quite meditative, so I put on a podcast to, like, bead away, and then I'd have kind of the outline of a country or a place that we'd been to, and that's what was patched on to, the suit jacket.
Amazing. And did you try and keep it like a secret from your husband, like before the wedding?
Yeah, that was really hard. So, Jesus doesn't go into the sewing room anyway because he'd have a nightmare because of how much of a mess it is sometimes. Um, and we had to block each other on Instagram, which was really strange. So no sending cat memes to each other for like 4 months while I was making the suit. But I think it was worth it because what we did at the wedding was we got married in a ravine. So all of the guests were there. We came with our wedding parties and met each other kind of with our wedding parties at the top of the stairs for the first time. So we got to really enjoy that moment, not in front of 70 people. And yeah, that was really cute.
That sounds really special. That's great that you got to wear it again as well.
Yeah, maybe again when I go to Tesco's tomorrow or something.
Yeah, yeah. Alison says, what were the best and then also the worst things about being on the sewing bee?
Oh, I do love this question because I think each time a new best and worst kind of comes into play. The best thing, other than meeting everyone and like building kind of that community, meeting Patrick and Esme and whatnot, it was probably the the opportunity to spend so much time sewing. We I don't think we ever get that. We might have a weekend or an evening, but to be doing it constantly over, a long period of time, I felt quite privileged to have that opportunity. That was probably the best thing because I got to learn so much during it. The worst thing, I think I always say the same answer, but it's seeing people go.
Yeah,
It's really hard.
because it's such like an intense process as well. I guess you feel like you get to know people like really, really quickly, and then they're
Mm,
just suddenly gone, and you're just like, oh no. I guess where you were in it till the end, you had to see the most amount of people leave.
yeah, and I think, we don't necessarily know while we're filming, like, what the reasons are for that because we all get our kind of made to measure judgment in front of each other, once we've done the catwalk, but then the judges go and deliberate, and then we come back in and someone's got garment of the week and someone's going home, and that's kind of it. So we don't get that justification until we've seen the episode. So, many times you might be thinking, I'm in the bottom, I'm gonna go home, and you're actually okay, or, the vice versa. So it's interesting because so many people ask us, or ask the bees about the experience, but we're experiencing it pretty much for the first time when we're watching it with everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. So Let's Sparkle with Sam says it sounds like the craziest sewing retreat ever.
The sewing bee, yeah. Um, maybe they should start doing. Maybe Sam, you can put on a sewing. I don't know, caterpillar, just to not get sued event where you can emulate the sewing bee, and I'll come and be your Patrick Leisner.
You could do a costume that's somehow Patrick and Esme. That would be uh,
Like a half and
very.
half. That would be really good. Yeah.
It's like a
Okay.
half serious suit, half like completely bedazzled bomber jacket.
Out of this.
Yeah. So Rachel from the French scene says, "How much creative control do you have when you're uh, doing drag costumes? Are you purely led by what they want, or do you get some kind of input?"
That's a great question. It can go so many different ways. You will get performers that will have seen something that they like on someone else and go, make me this. And I always say no because I don't want to, make a knockoff of someone else's design that they've spent so much time creating. We can be inspired by it. So I always like it to be a collaborative process, and they might come in, with some really big ideas, but not having kind of that technical or construction knowledge. You do have to kind of have those conversations around what is possible, but also at the same time, what might be impossible, and then how you can get around creating that, because that's always the challenge. So I tend to, work with a lot of performers that respect that, and I do get a lot of creative control in that, and I think that's why I really enjoy that process. And you do have to be quite firm sometimes, but at the same time, they're the ones that are bringing you the opportunity and the idea, and you might never have thought of that before in your entire life. Like, I want a suit that reveals into 7 different looks that,
Wow.
nothing is attached and it glows in the dark. Like, I don't know, I've just made that up, but, it's a great challenge to try and start working with.
Do you ever have to ask them about like what they're planning to do in their act? Like, if they're like, "Oh, I want this like PVC pencil skirt," and you're like, "Well, I think you do the splits like every time, and I think you're not going to be able to do that in this costume."
Just Velcro up on the side seams, so it just comes apart. Um, yeah, like what I will always do with a new performer, or even to be fair, any make that I make for someone, is we'll have that consultation where we'll kind of go through what it is that they're looking for and think about what they're, using it, what they're going to do in terms of the performance, what fabric they want, where's their inspiration come from. I'll take their measurements, and then I normally go away and come up with a design, maybe a kind of first draft of a toile of a basic shape, like a leotard or, a bodice block, and then we can look at, fitting that together.
Sounds really cool. Uh, oh, Agata's saying there are glow in the dark fabrics out there if you ever need a glow in the dark costume.
Yep, definitely. I'll have to work on that.
Oh, Natalie's excited about your own patterns that you're releasing. So, is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm really excited to release the patterns actually. You've probably seen a sneak peek, so I have got a mini collection coming together. There's a hat that is on my Instagram, the dungarees overalls that I wore at the Stitch Festival. There's going to be trousers, a dress, a shirt, and a bag, and it's all kind of inspired by painters and artists, that mix of kind of Renaissance flowy shapes and utilities of like a boiler suit. So they'll be coming out very, very soon. I'm aiming for around April time, so watch out, and hopefully you can all get to enjoy them.
Really exciting. So, how have you found the process of like, drafting the patterns and putting together the instructions and everything?
So the drafting has been so fun, because one of the parts of sewing that I am obsessed with is construction. So I enjoy sewing. I enjoy, having the make and that kind of creativity, but trying to think about making something 2D, 3D is just, the sweet spot for me. So playing with pattern paper and drawing shapes out and trying, oh, I want to create this. How does that work if I do this? Like, there's been, really, really fun. And then kind of taking that, working with, fit models to make sure it's working across different sizes and where I can make it as inclusive as possible in terms of shapes, without having, different variations and hundreds of patterns for people to cut out. That's been really fun. When it comes to the instructions, I don't know if anyone has ever written instructions for probably anything, but it's so hard because once you've been working on something for so long, you know it in and out. So you'll forget to put like, I don't know, the hem measurements are a really simple instruction somewhere else, and you have to kind of go through and really think about what you're putting in there. But that's what kind of copy editors are for, which is always good.
Yeah,
Have
really
you drafted
exciting.
anything?
No,
Would you give
no.
it a
Did
go?
you? Well, I don't know. I was going to ask, did you do like a pattern drafting course or anything, or you're just figuring it all out? That's really cool.
Figuring it all out, but I think that's what people can kind of have fun with when they're going to, pattern shopping and looking at patterns. Like, and I totally get it. You buy a new pattern that you really want to try out. You measure, you get your size, you cut it out, you get the fabric, and then you're sewing, and that's where people kind of start to slow down and really enjoy that process. But spend some time like looking at the pattern and, why are those lines there? What would happen if I shifted this? And, making quarter or half sizes of things is always great as well because you're not using as much fabric, but you can have fun with like, what if I drop the arm side down 5 centimeters? Like, what would that do? What if I had, pulled this out 5 centimeters? Um, and start to play with that. And I think again, that's where you can start learning these techniques just from the patterns that you've got at home.
Yeah, I mean, I do love a bit of pattern hacking. That's always good
Mm,
fun. That's quite an
it's
easy way to
basically
start.
drafting. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get a look that's like, whatever's in your head, but you don't have to like start from nothing. But it's quite good to like if you've already got a fairly basic pattern that fits you quite well,
Yeah.
that's often less work to make it look like how you want it to look with by putting different sleeves on and stuff than it is like having to then fit a whole different pattern that might have been, drafted to a different block.
But that's how a lot of kind of pattern companies and, certainly fashion designers work from. They'll have blocks, um, in model standard, industry standard blocks that they'll start adding to and taking away. And I think there's so much fun in that. So if you have got kind of like a top block or top pattern that you can use as a block, add sleeves on it, take sleeves off it, crop it, make it longer, just see what happens.
Yeah, it's good fun. Right, we've got a question from Small Smiley. Is there anything you will never ever sew? And if so, why?
Anything I would never sew in terms of fabric or outfit. Let's think. Fabric wise, I really hate organza. Um, but drag queens love organza. Because again, you can create so much shape with it. It can look really flowy and flower petal like. So that's always a big request. Um, but I hate sewing with it. I don't mind sewing with sequins. I think again, it's in the prep. Like, make sure you're trimming the sequins out of your seam allowance, using the right needles. That's all fun. In terms of make, what would I really not like to sew? I always said something like a suit, something really tailored, because there's so much construction in it, like, it's just quite overwhelming, but I've kind of conquered that fear, so I'm not too sure. What about you?
Mastered everything now. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's like never say never, right? But
Yeah, I think I'm the same.
I mean, well, so my father-in-law's got a boat, and sometimes he's like, "Oh, you could sew me some sails or a boat cover." I'm like,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
not."
Curtains. I will never sew
Curtain.
curtains. I don't have any. I've got blinds.
So yeah, maybe just something really like boring but massive, so it would still take loads of time.
Oh, hemming in a straight line for that long? No, thanks.
Like, we had another question. Oh, what's your favorite fabric to work with? That goes quite well with what you'll never, what you don't like to sew.
Yeah, my favorite fabric is a cotton poplin or a cotton twill moving into kind of canvas at the minute. I really like a cotton with a bit of body, because again, it's great for kind of that manipulation if you want something a bit structured, but it's still got that flowiness. Making something like an oversized shirt jacket or something is great because you can have that structure where you want it, and then the drape of the fabric. So that is my go-to. I've got so much in my stash. Um, I also do like working with like a PU or a vinyl because just the texture of it through the sewing machine, if you use a Teflon foot, it's like butter. There's just nothing quite like sewing with it. And again, there's a lot of risk because if you sew something wrong, it's sewn in. So you have to cut the pattern piece out again. So it does force you to be really slow, because it leaves marks in the fabric. But yeah, try that out if you've never tried that sort of fabric, 'cause it is fun to play with.
Nice. Natalie says, do you have any tips on fitting? That's always her downfall.
Yeah, fitting is really, really hard. And again, the main kind of experience I always had was from working with drag queens that have such unique body shapes. And I have to say, learning that it was trial and error, it was something I was actually really nervous about going into the sewing bee because I hadn't had that much experience. Um, and again, I quite like that trial and error and kind of experimentation, trying to get something to fit. I think it's about, again, that prep, so taking the measurements, looking at kind of the pattern and thinking about where you might have some ease in that pattern to play with, just in case, you need to take it in somewhere. Learning skills, around grading between pattern sizes is always great because no pattern is ever going to be perfect for someone. So, if you're a 10 on top and a 12 on the bottom, like, understanding how you can kind of grade that pattern to work for you. I think it's a skill that, takes such a long time to master.
Yeah, just a case of practicing, really, which
Mm.
is it's sort of the advice that no one ever wants to hear because it's like the highest investment. But yeah, I think that's the case with a lot of skills, isn't it?
And I think it's never going to be, it's like you were saying about sewing an armhole in 3 times and then kind of giving up. Like, you might make those improvements each time, and you might look at something and go, "I can get that even better." But it's at what level are you just gonna go, "This is okay for me."
Yeah, got to do the 3 foot rule, where if you can't
Yeah.
see the mistake from 3 feet away, you're like, okay, that's good enough.
Or if
If
you're a
anyone
drag
else,
performer, maybe by the bar, like, how
yeah.
far away is the bar?
Yeah, if you can still see it, go back to the bar, get a few more jigs.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's caught up on the live chat. But if anyone's got some more questions, do pop them in. Because yeah, it's really fun to hear what you want to know. Um, what I want to know is like, what's your sort of approach to fabric shopping? Do you like doing shopping online, or are you more in person?
Um, Definitely in person because I said it on the B, it's so easy to kind of get duped by, the descriptions that can be online. That's why I love, shopping on Minerva. If anyone's used Minerva is so great because people can put on their makes and like videos and content attached to fabric. So you get to see people using it and experiencing it if you've not got a local fabric shop. But there's just nothing quite like touching the fabric, seeing how it moves, and that's so important for me. I am very much of having an idea, even starting to think of shapes in terms of the construction, the pattern, and then going to see a fabric that fits rather than buying fabric and then thinking about what to make.
Yeah.
Are you the
Yeah,
same?
that's really cool. Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of put together the project plan, like the fabric and the pattern kind of come together
Mm,
sort of at the
mm,
same time for me. So like I don't know if I see like a fabric that I like, it will kind of just link to a pattern, I guess,
yeah,
like quite quickly in my mind. And then even if it's like a fabric that's like suitable for a certain pattern, I'm just like, no, that's not the vibe with like this
yeah,
print. So yeah, I don't know. I think, and then I think it's quite difficult then to get those ideas out of my head because they've just sort of like, they just clicked in my
yeah.
mind.
Yeah, it's hard. It's kind of like the whole chicken and the egg, isn't it? It's like sometimes you'll be inspired by fabric, sometimes it might be a pattern. Um, Sometimes it'll even be like, going in the stash and finding stuff that thinks, oh,
Mm.
that goes together. Like I'm gonna make something from that. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, I had this dress that I made that was kind of like sort of like a Rixo inspired dress, where the
Mm,
bodice is like one fabric and then the sort of rest of it's a different fabric. Because I
yeah.
was scrolling through my stash hub and I was like, oh, I put that same fabric in twice, but it was actually like two different fabrics, but they had the exact same colorway of like a bright
Mm,
green and a cobalt blue. So then I was like, maybe I could like do something with both of them together, and it just like worked out really well. So
yeah.
that was like quite a sort of fortunate thing, I guess, that happened just from stuff that like just happened to be in my stash that I'd never thought about putting
Yeah.
together.
And being incredibly organized like yourself.
I mean, I kind of have to be the poster girl for being organized now.
No, I know.
I can never get out of control. Alison
If
says, I went a bit mad at Stitch buying fabric because I never have the opportunity to touch fabrics. Shopping online can be so tricky, but
Yeah,
caveated with it's all on Stash Hub now. So great
oh,
job, Alison.
great job. It is really, you exhibiting this year, like, it's hard, isn't it? Because when you're going and you've got so many kind of, I don't know, stage stuff that you have to do, or if you've got a stand, you've not got the time to go fabric shopping, but my God, will we make time to go and buy some fabric?
I know. Would you like to see one of the fabrics that I bought? I've got one here.
I'd
I,
love
I
to,
got
show me.
I got Doug to come and bring it in, and he crawled under the door so no one would have to
Oh,
see him.
bless him. Hi, Doug.
This is
I
it's
saw
so
that you
like a
got this.
rainbow denim, and then this is like I don't know. They've cut the threads so it's all I don't know textured. I'll show you the
Where's that
back.
from?
It was from that's the back.
It's amazing.
Rosenberg, um, the Stitch Fabrics. So I got this, and Doug was like, "Oh, I really like this, so I might have to
Mm.
make a jacket for both of us to share."
So I have in mind with that a 80s style jumpsuit out of that fabric, belted at the waist with big shoulders, and then because it's got that grunge look, but then the pastel rainbowy fabric in there, like playing with like metals as well would be really cool.
Oh yeah. Oh, that sounds fab.
I'd
I
like
just
you
it's
to
just
like
so
see you make that.
tactile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
everyone.
amazing.
Sam says I nearly bought that. It's incredible. I actually saw this on, I think the Thursday, the first day when I was just sort of sneaking about at the
Mm,
end of the day when it got really quiet. And I saw it and I was like, oh, that's cool. But then I was like, oh, I'm not going to buy anything. So this is the first day. And then I went on Saturday and I was like, oh, do you still have any more of this? And they were like, oh, no, it's sold out. But we've got another bolt at the warehouse. And I was like, oh, please, can you bring your
mm,
other bolt tomorrow? So managed to get some, which was really good.
I'm gonna have to try and get some of that because that's really cool.
But yeah, hopefully I can like eventually get that sewed. I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to be really annoying to sew because of the little
Mm.
tassely bits, but I wasn't thinking about that when I bought it.
A good hack for that, and I do it a lot with fringing, is masking tape. So if you've ever got
Oh,
anything that's, frilly, fringing, you can masking tape it out of the way, or flat to the fabric, and it just kind of stays out of your way.
that's a good idea. Yeah, because otherwise, you don't want it to go down the hole in your sewing machine and then it
Mm,
starts just chewing it up because that would be annoying.
no.
Oh,
The
Joe
dreaded
says the
sound.
Sigourney jumpsuit from Closet Core. I don't know that one. I'll have to look that one up.
No, but I'm sure that sounds like it would be a really great 80s shape. So yeah, I'll have to look at that one
I
up
mean, if it's
too.
called Sigourney, like,
Yeah.
first thought is Weaver, so
Yeah, same. And my
surely
head went there
there's
as
an
well.
80s vibe.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up in a minute, Joe. Right, we've only got 9 minutes left, so if anyone's got any questions for Luke Matthew, you better smash them in the chat now, otherwise you'll run out of time.
I've got one for you.
Okay.
If you could design and make something for a celebrity, who would it be?
Oh yeah, this was the question I was supposed to ask you, wasn't it? I forgot about that. Oh, I don't know. Um, who wears really fun stuff? I don't know. I feel like people like Sabrina Carpenter always have like fun
Mm,
outfits, but they're always then such a style. So then you like
yeah.
constrained by that.
But
So
there's a
yeah, I don't know.
cleanliness to her looks as well. Like you say, it's fun, but it's still quite wearable.
Yeah, yeah, that
Mine
could
would
be
be Billy
fun.
Porter.
Nice. That'll be
Just
good.
love that style. Yeah, so that's mine.
I feel like you'd need to get someone who'd really like just like wear it as well. Would you like do it
Mm,
justice?
yeah. Or the opposite. Like, I can't remember the lady from the Bake Off, but she did a catwalk show, I think at London Fashion Week. And on the Bake Off, she'll wear like, buttoned up dresses with a little crop blazer, and she was in like some punk attire, and she looked so cool. I'll find her name and I'll put it on
Was this
Instagram. But
Prue? Like
yeah,
the
yeah, it was
I
Prue.
love Prue's outfits.
Yeah, it was so cool.
I feel like Prue would be very fun to dress. She seems like up for it and just like
Yeah,
would wear anything.
you just have to be up for it.
Yeah. And like lots of colour as well.
Mm, yeah.
Oh yeah, apparently the Sigourney is a an 80s style from their Decades collection.
I'm already obsessed with this. I'm gonna have to have a look.
I feel like Doug's not going to want to share it with me though if I do a
No.
big 80s jumpsuit look. Also, I'm only 5'2", so it definitely wouldn't fit him.
Well, there you go. You're gonna have to just make it for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I said, oh well, I'll let you. You could just have the fabric and you can make yourself a jacket. And he was like,
No,
oh, I'm not doing that.
no. I just look at it.
Oh, yeah. Natalie says, what about Siobhan from Throwdown? Yeah, I was thinking of like red carpet
Mm,
situation, but yeah, she has very fun clothes as well.
really fun style. Yeah, I'd love to dress her. That would be really camp.
Yeah,
She'd be really up for anything.
yeah. I love it when she's literally just like wearing full on pajamas, just on the show. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
great. Oh, she's so fun. Right. Is there anything you want to quickly tell us about before we wrap this chat up?
No, it's been lovely chatting and some great questions as well. They were really fun to answer. But definitely keep your eyes out on the socials. So Luke Ivo on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for patterns, because not only will I kind of release them for people to enjoy, but I want to look at kind of pattern hacking based on these patterns, alterations, so kind of creating a lot of content around the patterns so that people can have a lot of fun with them. So really looking forward to that, and always welcome the feedback too.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. What fabrics does everyone need to stock up on? Some like good cotton poplins for a bit of structure.
Yeah, some cotton poplins, some canvas, maybe some denim as well. Go and raid rainbow fabrics, so that I don't have to spend any more money there.
Yeah.
Um, and everyone was going crazy for the rainbow fabrics denim. They've got some really nice cow print ones as well.
I saw a video of rainbow fabrics like their stand at the start of the day, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like so tidy. Like when I saw it at the end of the day, it looked like it had been completely
Trashed.
ransacked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably me.
Yeah, just getting out all the block prints.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Agatha says Nicola Coughlan would be her person to dress.
Hmm. Yeah, I think
Do you,
it's worth having to think about that, like what celebrity you would dress, because then you can start to pull some of that inspiration into your own mix as well.
yeah, like when you think about people whose style you want. Yeah, now
Mm,
I'm just thinking about Siobhan from Throwdown and just like get her wardrobe. Most of it's just from Lucy and Yak though, so it wouldn't be too
yeah, no, no.
hard. Right, brilliant. If no one's got any more questions, we should probably wrap it up there. But yeah, really, really excited to see your patterns coming out. I've seen the sneak peeks and they look so
Mm,
good. So yeah, I like the dramatic sleeve action.
yeah,
I'm excited.
it's gonna be fun. I'll send some your way.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Luke Matthew, and it's been really, really fun to talk to you. Um, yeah, and thanks for answering all our questions.
No worries, it's been so fun. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
Cool. Yeah. And thanks to everyone who joined us live. If you missed the start, everything's going to be recorded on YouTube. And there's links as well to Luke Matthew on Instagram and all that. So, yeah, do check out those links as well. And I'm going to go and look up that Sigourney pattern now. But yeah,
So
thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye.